Good afternoon. How's everybody doing? How was lunch? So today we're going to talk about a few things. I know I actually just read the topic. I actually changed my presentation on the plane yesterday to talk more about the industry and talk a little bit about what we do, and at the same time not try and sell my book too hard, but talk about what we do specifically. But I want to give some statistics because this is specific to the travel industry, to talk about the noble purpose of travel and why, we feel at G Adventures that the travel industry in many ways has lost its way in terms of realizing its true potential and realizing its purpose. And how the new consumer with the social revolution upon us, how the new consumer is looking for much different things than the industry presently offers. We've been prime examples of that because in the last, we've been around for 23 years, but in the last 10 years, we've grown extraordinarily. We have offices in 28 countries. We export tourism in that we have people booking trips with us in 160 countries every year. So truly a global brand selling tours, and how you transcend what you do or transcend travel and offer a brand experience to your customers that is very unique. But first, let me just give you some statistics. In the last year, for the first time, there was 1 billion tourists in 2012. For years, they were anticipating this number was not going to arrive for the next couple of years, so we're ahead of schedule. Travel is becoming easier, cheaper, and better than for people all over the world. There's discount airlines everywhere. We all know that even most of the major airlines are launching discount airlines now. And there's more people traveling all over the world than ever before. And they're anticipating that in the next 10 years, it'll double, that we'll be about to 1.9 billion travelers. So there's no one looking, if you look at it as a business case study, the travel industry is a great industry because there's not many industries that can say they're going to double in such a short period of time. But the industry isn't going to scale exactly and look exactly like it does today. It's not going to scale and have the exact amount of people. There's going to be hotspots. There's going to be places, tourism destinations like the Great Wall of China, and China in general, India, Machu Picchu, Egypt. Like these places aren't just going to double. Tourism might, multiply times 10. And who's looking at the sustainability of all of those destinations and some of the world's most precious destinations? So just to give you some very boring facts, I'm going to break all the rules of public speaking by putting text on a slide for you to read. But 10 years ago, 1 in 5 people taking a package holiday chose all-inclusive. But today that number is 75%. So more and more people are staying in all-inclusive compounds or staying on cruises and not going out and spending money. So this in itself is a bit of an issue in terms of sustainability. The issues that we're facing is the tourism industry. Probably one of the most shocking statistics that came out from the United Nations Environment Program, that of every $100 spent on vacation by a tourist from a developed country, only $5 actually stays in that country. So more and more people are traveling to these compound resorts. They're not leaving the premises. All of that money, and all of those properties are foreign-owned or cruises, and none of that money is benefiting local communities. And there's that, and now those same companies are using that to their benefit by saying, if you've ever been to one of the resorts, they say don't leave the premises because the natives are restless. It's dangerous outside these walls. And it's naturally so because they're not benefiting. The local people are not benefiting from tourism being there. And this is not a sustainable model. And, traditionally it has been accepted, but the consumer's changing so much. There's so much information now in the information age that's upon us. The consumer's becoming more and more aware. They're all changing their lives at home. Like more and more people are recycling at home. People are putting low-watt light bulbs in their homes. People are eating organic. They're eating 100-mile diets, and they suspend all of those things on their holiday, where they just say, well, I'm in another country, so I don't have to follow that sustainable lifestyle that we're slowly working towards where we are at home. So these are kind of the things that are causing people to look at tourism for the first time. Combine that with carbon emissions and climate change and all of the things that are upon us, and for the first time, the travel industry is being seen as being held accountable for all kinds of issues outside of just climate change and carbon emissions from just air travel, but also issues of sustainability, cultural impact, all of these things, because the consumer has more information than ever before. There's activist groups for the first time telling people, do the staycations, don't travel anymore. Well, that's our worst nightmare in the travel industry, for people not to travel. You see these things on the internet if you can shrink the world to 100 people, give you an idea, they have these things that if you could take the entire world and scale it down to 100 people, you would have, staggeringly, 47 of the people in our little village would live on $2 a day, right? To give you an idea of, the issues that we face in terms of wealth distribution. And then even more staggering, there'd be 18 more people that would live on $1 a day. So that gives you an idea of our world today, right? These are issues that we face as a globe and as a planet about the ideas of the haves and the have-nots. We live in a developed world, and we have the benefit to travel internationally and to travel all over the world and see the world. But we have to understand that one of the issues we face as a planet is that there's a huge gap in wealth distribution around the world. But the conundrum that we face in tourism, because as I put this argument out all the time to people who talk about that you shouldn't travel to other countries, that out of the 40 poorest countries in the world, tourism is the second largest source of foreign exchange after oil. So this is staggering, because if done right, tourism can be a force of good and can change the world for the 40 poorest countries in the world. But it doesn't happen if you go back to where only $5 of every $100 spent actually stays in country. So according to the WTTC, in the next 10 years, tourism will be 10% of GDP and represent $10 trillion annually. So, I pose to audiences all over the world about the idea that if tourism is done right and is done well, and local people benefit, and local communities benefit, and creates local jobs and local employment, and is done on a more sustainable way, with sustainability taken into consideration, tourism could be the greatest form of wealth distribution that the world has ever seen. Now, I know in the US, at the last election, wealth distribution was a big issue. There was, I think there was two sides between wealth distribution and non-wealth distribution. But the issue of, imagine a world where you could go on your holiday and have a positive impact on the world. Instead of, we all want to do something. We all know, every one of us in this room knows that there's a great disparity between how we live and how people live in other parts of the world. We all want to do something. We all give money to local charities. We give money to our churches. We give money for different reasons. Some give it for animal rights. Some give it for, cancer, AIDS, whatever it is your cause. We all want to do something. But imagine if that money, and you just wanted to give back, you could just go on holidays. You could just take a holiday, and that could be your form of giving back. Imagine that form of wealth distribution. How would that have to look? So today, the world has changed, the consumer has changed, and everyone who looks, the way people buy and consume has changed. You guys all know in the travel industry, there's no industry that's been revolutionized more than the travel industry in the last 10, 15 years. First of all, with the internet, because in the old days of 1990, when people went on a vacation, they didn't know anything, right? They just got a guidebook, and they went in front of their travel agent, and the travel agent gave them suggestions on where to go. That was the golden age, wasn't it? Travel agents had, they just had to tell them all the different options, and you had a guidebook, that's the most you have. But today, the information's in everyone's pockets. And business models are changing. So there's social entrepreneurship and social innovation have traditionally been reserved for nonprofits. Nonprofits, the definition is if a nonprofit acts like a business to raise money for social issues. So if someone's trying to raise money for a social cause, they act like a business by starting some form of business or selling some kind of product to make money for social entrepreneurship or social innovation, right? But social media now has come along and created a level of transparency that never existed, and created a two-way dialogue in marketing to consumers. Marketing is no longer a one-way relationship, because consumers now have so much information through social media. And a good example of this is Nike. So Nike, back when most of us grew up, had Michael Jordan doing these amazing commercials at the height of his career, and you'd see a commercial of Michael Jordan slam dunking the ball. You would then walk into a store and see a Nike jacket. It would make you feel a certain way. It would trigger an emotion, and you'd buy that jacket, right? But that relationship doesn't exist like that anymore, because today, if you want to attach yourself to a brand like Nike, you can follow them on Facebook. You can follow Phil Knight on Twitter, the CEO. You can follow all their factories in Asia on Facebook, on Twitter. You can follow all their employees. You can create an intimate relationship with any brand that you never could previously. And that intimate two-way relationship, that conversation that goes on, you can tweet messages now to the CEO and president of any company and tell them you don't like their product or you do like their product, and that two-way relationship never existed before. That combination of social media and social entrepreneurship has created something new, which is called social enterprise. And social enterprise traditionally has been seen as a nonprofit style of business. But lately, you've seen companies all over the world. I just saw a video of Burberry. Do you know Burberry? It's a clothing company. I hadn't heard of it, and my wife thinks I'm such a heathen that I didn't know who Burberry was. How dare you not know who Burberry was? But Burberry is now calling themselves a social enterprise, right? And how they're doing that is defining their purpose as their company and defining how their relationship, their intimate relationship they're creating with their customers through social media, that transparency that's created through that social conversation is what builds brands today, right? That is what builds brands. If you look at Dove, another great American brand. Now, I was an immigrant kid in Canada, and Dove was the cheapest possible soap you could buy when I was a kid. My parents used to pay like $4.99 for 25 bars of Dove that came across this long, right? They couldn't even fit it in the car. They tied it on top of the car when they came home. Dove created a campaign a couple years ago. If you remember the campaign with the black and white middle-aged women, naked, crouched down, is it wrinkled or is it beautiful? Creating that two-way conversation. Is it wrinkled or is it beautiful? And you were kind of like, both, but Dove created that two-way conversation with the customer, and in turn, Dove became a premium brand overnight. If you go to Dove now and to buy the shampoos or the soaps, everything, it hasn't changed in terms of what the product was, but it's now a premium brand by creating that brand equity, by creating that social dialogue with the consumer, right? That intimate relationship about making Dove a household brand, because you could communicate and you could take part in the message that Dove was creating. And you related to it on a very different level. And then there's iconic brands. What makes an iconic brand? And the problem, iconic brands today are absolutely freaking out because everybody has the same free tools. I have the same tools in order to engage customers now as McDonald's, as Harley-Davidson, Nike, anyone else. And so the opportunities are endless for small-scale entrepreneurs and small-scale business people because they all have to engage with free tools. In the old days, if Procter & Gamble wanted to create a new shampoo, they would just spend a $100 million ad campaign, maybe do some product placement with Matt Damon in a movie, create some kind of brand proposition around this new shampoo, and we would just buy it, right? There's no better example of that than Accenture. Do you know Accenture? So Accenture was Arthur Andersen, Andersen Consulting. They had a bit of a problem with Enron. They said, you know, we're going to have a problem with this Enron thing. We better change our name. So overnight, they took Accenture. And you guys are all in the travel business. I'm sure you've all seen the billboards in every $100 million ad campaign around the world with Tiger Woods. The Tiger Woods Accenture ads, who hasn't seen those? The billboards in every airport. And overnight, Accenture became the largest consulting company in the world. Brand change, made you feel a certain way, created a $100 million campaign. But suddenly, all of these large, iconic brands now have to act like small companies. They have to act like all of us, because we all have the same tools and the same engagement tools that are free in order to create that intimate relationship with our customers. So that's where we have benefited, and that's where we came in as a company. So when we started, let me tell you, the world did not need another travel company. The world did not need another travel company. There was, one of the oldest industries in the world. How are we going to engage the consumers? And how do you become an iconic brand? And what makes an iconic brand? People talk about people getting our G tattooed on their leg, and people say, how do you make people love your brand and not just your program? And people say, oh, that's lucky that you just have a crazy employee. Well, you'd be wrong. And said, oh, that's just a drunk passenger. And I say, no, you would be wrong again. But what makes people love your brand so much that we could sell an African safari to a German person, to a German customer, right? And be based in North America. How can a North American company export tourism? And it's about creating that brand and that relationship with your customers. And so today, as I mentioned earlier, people from 160 countries book tours with us every year. North America only represents about 20% of our total business, 22%, but sold all over the world. But exporting tourism was our challenge. To make our brand different, we had to create a brand promise. And it started off with us talking to our customers differently. Because in the information age, you have to speak to your customers, and traditionally, brands try to be everything to everyone and pander to customers, because that relationship was one way. You never heard back from your customers, so you just always sent out the message. We love our customers, we love this, We did an online campaign in the last couple of years. First, the You'll Never Forget It campaign, and then the last one we did last year was, what will you do today for tomorrow? Where we asked our customers, we know what we do, but what will you do today for tomorrow? And we just ran a contest that had nothing to do with travel. Give us your ideas. Submit your ideas of how you can make the world a better place, whether it's your community, the world, through education, health, beauty, whatever it is. Submit your ideas. We had thousands of people entered. And it had nothing to do with travel. It was transcending what we do and creating that relationship with our customers. Online voting. We had Jane Goodall, Tony Wheeler from Lonely Planet, Les Stroud, who's Survivor Man. We had Director of the UN. We had various people that were all involved in the judging of all of these final entries that came in for the G Project. The G Project was a huge success. For one winner who would win $25,000 to make their idea a reality, to make the world a better place. Had nothing to do with travel. It was like that dove. Like Dove, when they were asking if it was wrinkled or if it was beautiful, had nothing to do with soap. Right? It had nothing to do with shampoo. It was about creating that conversation in a social space that we all have access to today. And I'm just going to show you what that looks like in our latest campaign, because the G Project was so successful. The UN, United Nations, made it an official event last year, our G Project Summit, and one of the directors out of Brazil was also one of our judges, that we're running the campaign again this year. And here's the teaser video that we're showing, and I'll give you an idea of how we talk to our customers. When we talk to our customers, it's about what will you do? Because the consumer holds all the power in the future, and it's their choices that's going to drive change. And I tell this to all tour operators when I get a chance to speak to them. Tour operators all over the world spend so much time telling customers, we do this, we do that, we have this donation program, we have this. But the real power that's going to create real change and sustainability is the consumer being more educated and making more sustainable choices. Entrepreneurship is overglorified because when we were kids, there wasn't 27-year-old billionaires. So today, entrepreneurship is sexy. And so everyone thinks everyone's out to create a new Facebook. But the truth of the matter is, entrepreneurs create products for demand. It's overglorified. Entrepreneurs are whores. We create products for demand. There's a demand, we fill it. Don't overglorify it. And so it's very easy for us to communicate about our product's the best. We'll give you the best service, all of those things. When the customer wants today, with that two-way relationship, wants you to talk to them a very different way. Take a look at this short video of how we're promoting the next G Project.
If there's one thing that people all over the world have in common, it's problems. We may come from different cultures and speak different languages, but our challenges are one and the same. Our world isn't perfect, but if we want to, we can make it better. Human beings are problem solvers. We shape the world around us to make it a better place to live. And what sparks that change is ideas. They almost always start out small, but through hard work, experience, and dedication, they can rewrite our future. They can change the world. Not all of them become amazing inventions or grand unifying theories of the universe, but they don't have to. Good ideas aren't measured by their frequency or size. What matters is what we do with them. You're surrounded by other people's ideas. Everything around you that wasn't pulled from the living earth started out in the mind of someone. Someone just like you. And the only difference between their idea and yours is that they took theirs and made it real. Our problems don't solve themselves. They need people to dream up their solutions. People like you and me. It doesn't take a stroke of genius to change the world. All it takes is a single, simple idea. Will it be yours?
Thank you. So let me just talk quickly about Looptail. So surprise, I wrote a book that was released late last year, and it went on to the New York Times bestseller list. Thanks for everyone who bought it. And if you haven't, please go buy it. So let me tell you about what the book is about quickly, because I think that's why I got this spot here to speak to you today. First of all, people always ask me, what is a looptail? Looptail, there's a true definition of what a looptail is. Looptail is the little tick that is located under a G. So a little tick under a G, that's a looptail. And for your grammar lesson today, that's an ear, by the way. And so with our logo, we wrapped it around like this many years ago because of an experience I had when I changed the direction of our company in 1997 when I went to Tibet. And that G is supposed to represent a GO, which stands for Great Ocean, right? That O is supposed to be going around the G. And Great Ocean is the English translation for the Dalai Lama. So when I wrote Looptail, I presented it to His Holiness the Dalai Lama and asked him to write the foreword of my book, which he did. And he had never endorsed a business book before. He'd never written a foreword for a business book and never endorsed a business book. But I convinced him that our business was no longer just a traditional business. We were a social enterprise that was geared towards fulfilling a higher purpose outside of travel in creating wealth distribution and changing people's lives through the use of tourism as that vehicle. Now, we have a very high view of the purpose of travel, the higher purpose of travel. I'm a firm believer that there's no faster path to peace than people getting to know other cultures, getting to know other people and how other people live around the world and get a better understanding the way other people live. And tourism can be that noble purpose, that noble vehicle that can give people that understanding of how other people live. Because I think that if we understood how other people live and how other families grew up and how other people live around the world, we would invade less countries because we would appreciate how other people and other religions existed. So Looptail, for me, was a bit of a labor of love. And, one of the things they wanted me to mention in this talk is about our business model, about happiness. One of the things I talk in Looptail, about is about our business model of happiness. We all run businesses, and there's 4 main pillars to happiness. If you ask anyone what happiness means to them, the first thing people think is getting a new car, having maybe a meal with your family, walking your dog. It's usually about buying something, and that's all part of happiness, but that's all what they call momentary happiness. And the issue we have today is that people are trying to string along a lot of momentary happinesses to be happy. So we're consuming so much, because buying and consuming and getting new things is what makes us happy. But actually, if you actually study, I didn't make this up, if you actually study what drives internal happiness, it's very related to any business. And what drives performance with people is happiness. And it's that story that's in my book that I get across about our business model is all about creating happiness. And there's 4 main pillars to sustained happiness. You can go out tomorrow and buy yourself a new car, and you're going to be happy for a good week, right? But then you're going to need a new something after that, and then you're going to have to create. And that's why we're always constantly searching. I'm a big believer that the connectedness in Facebook, one of the 4 pillars is connectedness in happiness. And if you look at this for your business, there's 4 main pillars to happiness. The ability to grow. If you can't grow, you can't be happy, right? So you have to be in a place where if you're hard work, and I put this message out to anyone who runs a business and employs people. If people work hard, they have the ability to see a path where they can grow. That's a standard business practice of hiring employees. The next one is being connected. You have to be connected to either the product or the people or anything. Connectedness. I'm a believer that the success of Facebook, the way and social media is so successful is people's needs for connectedness, to be more connected. We're reaching out to people through social media to fill the void of connectedness that's needed for internal happiness. How many people here have worked for people they hate? Thanks for the ones who are honest. The rest of you are liars, because everyone has worked for people they hate. And you can do a good job, but you can never achieve happiness. And everyone has worked on a team where there's one lowest common denominator that slows the whole group down. And those kind of dynamics is what creates dysfunction in teams. But happiness drives performance. And people, and that's what, I talk about Looptail. The Dalai Lama talks about our purpose in life is to achieve happiness. There's no other point in your existence, according to His Holiness, except to achieve happiness. And so you can't separate that between work and life. The way people have this work-life balance is if work has to be on one part, and at 5 o'clock I shut it off. You have to create an integrated world in your own mind, which creates the integrity you need. Integration and integrity are very similar words, that allows you to love what you do, be passionate about what you do, and no matter what it is that you do, find your noble purpose. Find the purpose. And if it's even computer chips, and your purpose is making people's lives better through technology, whatever it is, people have their purpose. And there's no greater industry to find purpose than in our industry, the travel industry. And we've lost that purpose with more people in compounds and not spending money locally, and local people not benefiting, sustainability not being taken into consideration. The cruise industry that's building these compounds for thousands of passengers to come out and spend $100,000 in 8 hours, but in a contained, these are the issues that we face as an industry. And then there's freedom. That you can't, the last pillar of happiness is freedom, the ability to be free and make your own decisions, think on your own. If you're in prison, generally you're not happy. I think that's the purpose of prison. You're in prison. So freedom is the last kind of pillar that people need to be able to be happy within their workspace, to be able to make the freedom to make mistakes, freedom to make decisions, autonomy to do their jobs, all of those things. And those 4 pillars, if you incorporate that within your people, you will see a marked difference in your performance as people become happy. They drive growth. That's how you attract the best people. That's how you get staff retention. All of these things, that's how you get innovation. People not afraid to make mistakes. All of the great things you need to run a business all centers around the pillars of happiness. I'm going to race you through quickly, give you an example, because I talk about these theories all the time. I'm going to show you what we do in Peru. So in Peru, we're the largest operator on the Inca Trail in the world. We consume 32% of the market share of Inca Trail permits. 32% of the market share. We have 500 employees in Peru, and we consume 32% of the market share. Number 2, I think, is 7%. Give you an idea of our dominance on the Inca Trail. So we're the first operator in the world that went to the government and said, oh, I went and said, I need a permit to run our own Inca Trail operations. And I said, what we would do is I would recruit all the people from low income areas. We'll train on low or high unemployment areas. We train everybody. We would benchmark the price, and all the money would go back to the community. So we're not doing it for cheaper prices. It was to maintain the quality and to be able to grow and scale as a business. We became the first Western operator to get that Inca Trail permit. And now Drive, most of the sustainability efforts and everything about preserving the Inca Trail is now driven by our group. We actually have a training seminar. The Inca Trail is actually closed 1 week a year, which is coincidentally this week. And we have all 500 of our people in training right now in Peru. And this is an example of what it looked like last year. Take a look at this video quickly.
Before to run their own office here in Cusco, they work with many local tour operators, and all of them were competitors, and they were not trying to share the G culture. They didn't pay well to the porters, they didn't pay well to the guides. It was actually quite bad.
Jet Ventures started to work their own trips. That was the change. That was the revolution moment. That is the moment that people were starting to pay to our porters, let's say, wages and very fair wages, and to treat our people like people.
Because it's about doing the right thing when it comes to business of tourism. And doing the right thing is profitable. And that's what G Adventures has shown.
G Adventure has given me my freedom, financial independence, self-confidence as a woman and as a local guide.
But G Adventures is providing to the communities everything. It's giving to them the opportunity to grow, to create, small businesses to create more jobs. And the economy from our travelers, from our trips will go straight to these small communities, to these small businesses as well. And I think that is the most important part to be a social enterprise.
Low employment areas are working in this company as porters, cook assistants, assistant guides, and guides are working now for G Adventure, which is very awesome because this is the way how we're helping them to improve their economies in their hometowns.
We can do it by being free.
Thank you. Give you another example. We drive 20,000 passengers to Machu Picchu every day in an area that had zero employment for women. We identified a cultural issue that the younger generation was no longer weaving, social issue. They were, of course, moving into the town to service our passengers. They're working in bars, they're working in retail shops, selling on the streets, selling crafts, whatever it is. The younger generation was moving to town for work, and they were losing all of their traditional patterns. So unconsciously, we were having a cultural impact on the community. Because they were losing all their Incan patterns, all of their storytelling, which is done in their Incan patterns. So we developed the Women's Weaving Co-op, which is located just outside, where we'd have the women learn how to weave, teach the younger generation. There's 90 women now involved in the co-op. And we would then bring all of our groups through, and our groups would consume all the products and spend a day learning how to weave, spending time with all of our, with the women there. And it's become it was one of our most successful ideas. Through our foundation, Planetara, we have over 40 projects around the world now, but this is one of our first ones where we looked at a social problem and a social issue and created a business solution. And the best part about it is we created differentiation with our product. Everyone in the world has Inca Trail programs. There's Inca Trail programs offered by everyone in Peru, but no one had what we had, which was this Women's Weaving Co-op. And just quickly, I'm going to show you a short video of what that project looks like and what it looks like today.
We think travel is about going places, about departure points and destinations. But this isn't why we go. A stamp in your passport reminds you where you've been, but not why you went. We travel because we're looking for something. Something important. Something meaningful. Something that matters. Traveling takes a lot from us, but what we leave behind is worth so much more than what we take away. When we travel, we're not leaving our homes and our families behind. We're searching for new ones.
So that gives you an idea of live examples of how we view tourism and how we oh, what happened here? Sorry. So that gives you an idea. I just wanted to give live examples because, you know, talk theory all the time, and you talk to people who talk about happiness business models and all the kind. That gives you an idea of some of the projects that we have and how we have them all over the world, all in over 100 countries, over 40 projects around the world that create these sustainable solutions. I can't go over all of them, but probably one of the most controversial and most innovative things we did was last year announcing a partnership with the IDB, the Inter-American Development Bank. So the Inter-American Development Bank, also proving the theory that I was talking about earlier about business and social enterprise. We went to the IDB and asked them to look at us as something different, more than a company. They'd never worked with a for-profit company. They've never worked with a for-profit business. They only work with nonprofits. And we convinced them to create a multi-million-dollar relationship with us to build community projects all across Latin America, to get into community development, where we could build tourism projects along the routes of our travelers. And you know, it was when I actually went to speak about it in Washington to an audience, I got booed by the nonprofits because we were blurring the line between profit and for-profit and profit business. And 1 year later, these are the 5 projects that we've launched with the IDB. The IDB, which again is the Inter-American Development Bank, which was also funded by the MIF, the Multilateral Investment Fund, came together to work with a private sector company for the first time to build community and tourism projects. Our first 5 are launching before the end of this year. There's 2 homestay programs in Central America. There's an organic coffee tour, a co-op coffee tour and restaurant, which we're going to bring all of our passengers for lunch, 7,000 passengers there. And then 2 in Peru, which is the large Trek community campground, which is going to affect everyone running in that area, because everyone will have to now pay to camp, because including ourselves, companies are staying there for free and camping there for free, including ourselves. We've been doing it for 15 years. And the local community is completely impoverished and not benefiting. And we're building campsites, which will build a board of directors with the local community, and they'll now benefit from travelers being in that region, creating campsites for everyone that has to use in order if they want to travel in that area in Peru. And then in Sacred Valley, we're doing our community restaurants, which will fund, which will bring 15,000 passengers for meals, and it'll support and train the local communities in those regions. Give them food and beverage skills, because it's a training program. It's not just a restaurant. To give food and beverage, repurposing the unemployed people in that region into new jobs, and then our groups will come in and support that. That gives you an idea. And in closing, how you transcend travel and transcend what you do. A lot has been said, you know, especially with the promotion in the States here about my book Looptail when it was doing well. There was a lot of people, because I speak at Google, I've spoken at Apple, and people talk about that a lot. Last year we were on the cover of 5 magazines in the last 2 years. And when we're on the cover of those magazines, it's never about travel. It's never about that we don't do great trips in Africa. It's never, and it used to piss me off actually, but it doesn't necessarily anymore. It's always about what we stand for and what our business means, and how we've transcended what we do by driving our business model and our people and our happiness business model, driving it, and the sustainable side of our business, the foundation work that we do, and creating social and redefining how people look at social innovation, social media, creating a new world called social enterprise. And so really that's the key, you know, the basis of why I wrote the book Looptail, because I wanted to tell people my story over the course of the last 23 years, how we've become, you know, a leader in our space globally in terms of the small group adventure space. But we've done it not by just running great tours. You're taught in school about running the best tour, the best quality tour, but in the social world, Mark Zuckerberg, the guy who owns Facebook, is it Zucker something? Zucker dude. The Mark Zucker dude, he always says if there's 2 companies with equal products, the more social company will always win. And I mean, I leave you with that today, and I leave you with the message that travel in itself is the most noble profession. I really believe that. That, you know, we all got into this industry to discover more passion, purpose, and happiness in our lives, and we forget that when we get bogged down in the weeds of product and customers and travel agencies and wholesalers and discounting and all the stuff that goes on with travel. But we forget what our noble purpose is as a travel industry, and that is helping people discover, you know, passion, purpose, and happiness. And if done the right way, travel can be the greatest form of wealth distribution, create good, and transform cultures and communities all over the world. Thank you very much.